Welcome everybody to the Gary Neville Podcast, which comes for the first and almost certainly the last time this season from Leicester's King Power
Stadium.
Stadium.
I thought you were going to say I was off then. Thanks, Peter. I can have a few weeks off.
Yeah, well, you can if you want. You're your own boss, Gary. But maybe we should deal with the weekend's football first. And today has been a telling day, certainly in one regard. Leicester City are relegated, and an almost telling day in another, in that Liverpool are now just a win away from being champions. What have you made of what you've seen today?
The game was Liverpool. You felt like we're in sort of third gear, times going into fourth. Very efficient, very comfortable. Leicester didn't really put them under that much pressure. Had a couple of moments where, in the first half, indeed, he hit the post, and that was interesting. But Liverpool had by far the better chances throughout the match, and it wasn't a surprise that they got the goal in the end. Maybe a slight surprise it came from Trent Alexander-Arnold's left foot. But yeah, look, Leicester just haven't been good enough. I mean, the thinking of the Leicester fans, having watched their team now for 9 games at home and not seeing a goal it's sad, it's desperate really. It's what fans, and particularly young football fans, come to the game for, to watch the team score a goal and get excited, and they haven't seen that now for 4 months, which is, like you say, a difficult situation. But they're still here. Loyalty is important. You'll not find anyone more loyal than football fans or sports fans in general. They come every single week, they watch their club, and Leicester fans are no different, and they filled this stadium here today. And Leicester have put up a decent fight. They've obviously gone down, they've not been good enough over the season, and neither of the other teams that have come up, and that's a slight concern, or it is a concern, because it's happened now 2 years on the bounce. But Leicester don't really do anything very well. They're not a great football side, they're not really an aggressive side. I don't think they've had a sending off all season, someone told me before the game, which is incredible. I mean, I'm not saying sending us off for a measure of how good you are, but the fact of the matter is it does tell you that a competitive spirit through a club and through a team should mean that you get even double yellows. It doesn't have to be bad red cards. Some would argue that means the discipline's good, but I would be concerned about it. They're not really great at set pieces. And the goalkeeper obviously makes the mistake as well. So I think when you come up from the Premier League, from the Championship, it's getting more and more difficult. And I understand the sort of dilemma that clubs have of not wanting to throw hundreds of millions at it on the hope that you recruit right and then you stay in the Premier League. Some clubs have done that, and some clubs have done it terribly and going the other way. So yeah, it's a real conundrum for clubs in this position, and we're seeing it more and more, the same 3 clubs coming up and going down.
Do you think it is a historical blip, a freak, that 2 seasons in a row that has happened? Or do you think it is indicative of a change and that it is harder?
We have to be concerned about it, because it's the fear that's sort of... there's no doubt it's becoming more fixed, the Premier League. That's a fact. If you think about it, not necessarily the 3 same teams going up and down, but it's becoming more and more difficult. The same 5 or 6 teams going up and down. It's becoming more difficult for teams to become permanent, if you like, or semi-permanent in the Premier League. There's some clubs who've done it successfully, but you always get the feeling that there are certain clubs at the start of the season who've got a chance of going down, and some have no chance of going down. And I think that's becoming more fixed as a position, and that's something definitely to be concerned about, because one thing that we always talk about with the Premier League is the competitive nature of the entire league, and we can never lose that. The relegation and promotion is something that over in this country we sort of cherish. That anybody can come from sort of step 6, 7, 8 in the pyramid all the way through to the Premier League. Luton, I think, have gone from sort of National League, didn't they, up to the Premier League in the last few years. That's a great story, but it's becoming more of an exception as the years go by. So it's something we need to keep an eye on, and the disparity between the finances of the Premier League and Championship are there for all to see. The parachute payments put real pressure on clubs in the Championships to have to try and compete. So yeah, big challenges, and I think that there is something needed, but I don't think that's for today. I think that the authorities, there's a regulator coming in, there are negotiations ongoing between the Premier League and the EFL. Hopefully they do become concluded at some point in the future, because I'd like to see it just balance out a little bit more than it currently is.
Is there anything you'd want to say about Leicester specifically and their set of circumstances this season? Started with Steve Cooper, which for a variety of reasons, who knows what, ultimately didn't work out. Ruud van Nistelrooy was his replacement, and he has poise and pedigree. He looks like the man on the line, doesn't he? But it hasn't worked out either. What are your observations around the Leicester season?
Yeah, I had a half an hour with a Leicester fan before the game. I haven't seen too much of Leicester this season live and not been here that many times. Been here twice. But the real unhappiness doesn't seem to be with the owner. It seems to be with the people below that, including Ruud van Nistelrooy for that matter. And yeah, they want change. They want change in the executive. They want change in the sporting department. They want change, obviously, potentially even on the bench. And Ruud's talking about whether he's going to be here next season. I think Ruud's, looks a really competent manager. Looks like he's got a really good way about him. I think that obviously he'd be so disappointed. I mean, he's so proud, Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's such a winner, fiercely competitive behind that calm sort of external demeanour that you all see and we all see. But he'll be hurting really badly. But this is part of his journey as a manager. He's never going to be successful in all the jobs that he has. He was probably a hair's breadth away from maybe even looking at getting the Manchester United job at one point in the season where he had 2 games against Leicester, if you remember. But it's not worked out for him as he would have wanted at all here. He's had issues in the last few weeks with players not travelling, not being here in Leicester. I've got some sympathy with that. The players probably were sold that they could travel, because I know that's happened here at Leicester in the past. But I'm really against it, just even from being a club owner point of view. The idea of players and families not committing to your football club when you're paying them an incredible amount of money is something that doesn't wash with me. Maybe that's something that the club should have set out at the outset before, obviously, Ruud's come in and looked to change it. But it does spell, when you think about preparation and professionalism in football, that for me, the obligation you have every single week when you're a football player or anybody is to make sure that you do your absolute best so that you can perform for your football club. And as a football player, travelling is just not good, let's be clear. Being in a car for 2 hours, being on a train for an hour and a half, we all do it. Everyone's done it in life. You come off a flight, you come off a plane, you come off a train, you sit in a car for an hour and a half, you get to the services, you go like that. Now, that is just terrible for a football player. And so I've got some sympathy with him around this. He probably feels that there is a lack of professionalism running through the dressing room for him to highlight these types of instances. So there's obviously issues in the dressing room. There's issues with the fact they haven't got a good enough team, but they don't do anything particularly well. And they're a bit of a nice team to watch. They've got some good footballs, haven't they? You watch them there. So Buonanotte came on at the end. He's a good football player. Mavedidi's a good football player. De Cordova-Reid. There's something there, isn't there? But then I think to myself, they didn't really hurt Liverpool. I mean, Mavididi, I thought, was the one player who looked like he could, do something against Conor Bradley, but he didn't get fed the ball anywhere near enough. So there's not a lot to say about Leicester. And today they're up against the best team in the league. So, today was probably in some ways a good performance by them to keep Liverpool as close as they did.
Well, let's talk about the best team in the league then, who probably this time next week will be champions. They've got a home game against Tottenham. Arsenal, as we know, play midweek against Crystal Palace. And truth be told, it's hard to find new things to say about Liverpool because they've been on the edge for so long. But what are your observations around them today?
I just think that over a season that the coaching performance of Arne Slot is one of the best coaching performances we've seen. And I say that just in light of the fact of taking over who he took over from. One of the greatest personalities and characters that we've seen in the Premier League, and Liverpool icon and legend. Going into that dressing room and have to establish control and authority, but knowing he probably could never do it the same way as Jurgen Klopp. No one can be the same personality and sort of character as he was. But the way in which all season he's sort of coped with the conversations around the contracts, he's dealt with those conversations. They've then signed I think the most important 2 of those players, Van Dijk and Salah, in the last couple of weeks. The way in which he's sort of kept calm and composed at points whereby maybe it's not gone as well for them as he would have wanted. I just think the way in which he's got the maximum out of every single player, and I'm not talking about the very best players in the team, which he obviously has, which is fantastic testament to him to get the very best again out of Van Dijk and Salah and make them feel so comfortable. And people say, well, okay, that they're great players, they're world-class players. Of course they are, but still they can be upset and put off quite quickly if they're not with the right type of manager. These types of players, they're difficult to manage if they're not with the right type of personality. So he's done brilliantly with those, but also the younger players, but the players who I would class as being 6 out of 10 players, he's made 7 out of 10. That's the most impressive thing for me. And the players who are maybe 6.5, 7 out of 10, he's made 8 out of 10. The likes of Gravenberch and Gakpo, who maybe you thought, well, are they real top Liverpool players, and now you look at them, you see Gravenberch today. Actually, I gave McAllister the man of the match, but Gravenberch could easily have been man of the match. He's been fantastic. So I think he's done an absolutely brilliant job. Honestly, I think that at the start of the season, none of us can rewrite history. I don't think there were many Liverpool fans thought they would win the league, let alone anybody else. I don't remember any pundit or analyst or journalist or fan really saying Liverpool will win the league. It was Manchester City or Arsenal. So for them to do what they've done is very special. And next weekend he's going to have the game of his life. May come for him during the week if Arsenal. I mean, he may get that sort of feeling of not happening as he wants it. I mean, you can never say when you win the league is a bad moment, but the worst time to win it is when you're at home in midweek and it's 10 o'clock at night and you've won the league and everyone's sort of like thinking, what do we do? I mean, it happened to us a couple of times and we end up going out in Manchester, but never quite the same. In fact, it's nothing like the same as being at Anfield next Sunday, knowing you've got a game for the title with ones to spare. So it doesn't come with the pressure of a sort of last day, for instance. So it's a very special moment you can enjoy this week. Arne Slot is there speaking on our screens now. He's been flawless. I think the main thing is for him, he's got 3 world-class players. I think that Alisson, who to be fair has been supported by Kelleher this season. I think Alisson's played 22, 23 games. Kelleher's played, I think, around 10. So he needs to be mentioned. But having a world-class goalkeeper makes all the difference. Van Dijk is a massive presence and authority in the team. He holds the whole thing together. I mean, it's so important. And there are very few players like that. I think Kompany was a little bit like that at City. I think John Terry was like that at Chelsea. I think Roy Keane was definitely like that at Manchester United. A player who goes beyond their own performance and just sort of gives that confidence and comfort blanket to everybody else in the dressing room. And so important to get him signed in and locked in again. And then Mo Salah, the way in which Mo Salah has gone from being someone who made beautiful, brilliant runs in between full-back and centre-back like Mane used to, but he used to make them from that right-hand side. He's now playing very differently, where he's sort of not really pressing anymore. Not that he was ever amazing at pressing, but he sort of like floats forward when Liverpool are defending into that sort of split striker position. The ball gets played over his head. Someone from behind him gets out, and he doesn't get out there. And he's sort of they've sort of come up with a way of accommodating him to get the best out of him. And he was a constant menace today. So having him on that side, just a world-class player, an operator, and then you've got a lot of very good other players in and around who are a threat, the likes of Diaz and Jota and Nunez and Gakpo. So it's been a team effort all the way through. They've been by far the best team. They're not going to get pushed at the end, but that's not their problem. That's the problem of the others. It's the problem of City. It's the problem of Arsenal. It's the problem of Chelsea and Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham, Manchester United, all the clubs who spend big money who would like to think that they'd be up there. You know, Liverpool now have recruited very well for a number of years, but I did think at the start of the season, you know, I think I had them 5th. I thought there would be just a natural fall, as there sometimes is when a Wenger leaves or a Sir Alex Ferguson leaves. There just is a natural just drop. So that's why I think the manager and coach deserves enormous credit. A really special performance from him.
Just on Van Dijk, because he's been this week's news.
Yeah.
To my untrained eye, I watch him play a lot. And the way he covers the ground and the way he is the complete master of everything in front of him, it looks as though he could play till he's 45. I mean, to what extent physically will he be able to carry that level of performance forward?
Difficult. In a good back four, he should be able to play for another 2, 3, 4 years, definitely. You know, it's a position where you can play till you're older. It's very rare to get a defender or a player who has everything. Height, speed, good in the air, good on the ground, can play long passes, can play short passes, can play with his left foot, can play with his right foot. You're talking about a unique football player. And to add to that, the most important thing is the intelligence and understanding and reading of the game. You normally can get players who are tall, quick, good in the air, but they can't read the game. He can read the game as well. So he is absolutely the complete centre-back. Usually you see a pair of centre-backs that sort of one is the intelligent one who sweeps up everything, the other is the aggressor, the one who goes and sort of attacks everything, and he does all that. He's the best in both boxes. He's the best with the ball at his feet. He has the most passes for Liverpool nearly every single season. He plays direct passes over to Salah that are 60, 70 yards, but looks like he's just fading a little 7-iron. You watching Rory McIlroy last week, and there was a pass he played at one point in this game. It just like a golfer, just just drifting it beautifully into sort of the feet of someone. He passes it into feet, he wraps it into midfield. He still pushes his back foot up the pitch, which, to be fair, again, as you're getting older, is more difficult to do. And I suspect, and I don't know this, but you only can feel it, that the impact in the dressing room that he has on everybody else means that the rest of them have got nowhere to go. Because when your best player, your captain, is playing at that level, and they're so professional, and Salah looks like his body's the best it's ever been. He looks fit like you wouldn't believe. You see those two at that level, and Alisson, you've got your world-class players preparing. We're just talking about Leicester, about players travelling 2 hours and not wanting to come and stay night before a game to come and practice. I don't think Salah does that. I can imagine Salah eating perfectly, resting perfectly, doing everything spot on so he doesn't get injured. He never misses a game hardly in whatever it's been, the years he's been at Liverpool. Van Dijk's had the odd injury, we know that, but you can imagine the levels of professionalism that these top players have. So it then drives that standard right the way through everybody else. And the young players coming up, the players that have gone from 6 to 7 and 7 to 8, are probably because of these three as well. Well, they are because of these three, because they're looking at the very best doing it, and they're thinking, right, that's what I want to be like, and I'll go and do exactly what they do. And it was like that for us when I was at United. You just looked up to your mentors, your coaches. The standards are very high, and that's what Liverpool have got in those three in the dressing room. In Alisson, I think Salah and Van Dijk, they're sensational.
Sure. So, Trent, what did you read into that celebration and well, the belting of that goal? It felt so meaningful, all of it, one way or another, didn't it?
I didn't want to look. I pressed the button to the producer and said, "Go to Cara. Is that anger or is that celebration?" And at the conclusion I came to at the end, it came back, and Cara, I think at the end, I heard him answer it saying that he felt it was potentially a bit of both. I agree. I think there was some ferocity in there and fierceness when he first went over, and that it was almost like that, one of those celebrations. And I can see where that comes from a little bit. Debated that with Cara a couple of weeks on a programme about he maybe just doesn't feel the love and sense the love that maybe others do. And maybe that's, obviously he's not answered questions about his contract. He did an interview on the pitch at the end of the game where I believe he said that he didn't want to talk about it again, so he's bumping it down the road. But there's going to come a point, probably in about 7 days' time, around this time next Sunday, whereby he's going to have nowhere else to go. Because the season's over for Liverpool, in essence. They'll have won the league. There is nothing else to talk about other than, are you staying at the club or not? And he'll have to just say yes or no. So, he'll have to get himself sorted this week, I would imagine, because once you start leaving it beyond next weekend when you've won the league, it becomes a little bit distasteful. You're better off just declaring your hand, I think, at that point, and just saying, yes, I'm staying, or no, I'm not. But look, he's such a great player, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mentioned the other three before about being world-class. Trent Alexander-Arnold is world-class on the ball. There is no doubt about that in his position. His numbers are absolutely frightening. And to come on, what a great moment for him. And that'll be a moment that if he does leave and he does go and sign for Real Madrid, that will live with him forever. To score a goal that's so important in winning the title. It's not the title-winning goal, but, it was significant. And to win 1-0 and him score, I think, is a nice, brilliant moment for him today. He can enjoy the next week. I think he'll probably play next Sunday, is my gut feeling. I don't know why I'm saying that, because I've got no idea, but just the way in which he came on at the end, I think, for 20 minutes. He'll have another week of training. And he's a special player. But maybe the changes are afoot there at full-back for Liverpool. Maybe Robertson, who's been absolutely amazing for Liverpool at left-back. Such a consistent and reliable performer, and Trent at right back as well. They've been the best. Maybe it's time for Liverpool to, think of changes in those positions. One because of obviously maybe just getting on a little bit, and the other because of obviously leaving. But it's a story still to be told. It's one that will continue to keep being asked. The manager's still doing questions. He'll be being asked about it now. 2 down, 1 to go. He'll probably know what's going on, and definitely will know what's going on. But he's handled it with class. He has, Arne Slot's handled these interviews with class because he's been put under real pressure. And I think the club, to be fair, I think that it would have come on top to allow those types of players to leave. It'd been very difficult for Liverpool not to have given Salah and Van Dijk the money, particularly Van Dijk. To see him leave would have been I know I said before, Klopp leaving and you can replace him, very difficult to replace Van Dijk, 'cause I'm not quite sure who there is. Who the hell can replace him?
Right. And there's no point asking you to guess about Trent. That's pointless. We could all have a guess.
My gut feeling is that he would be leaving because as a homegrown player, I can only imagine on Liverpool it would be 10 times worse than in Manchester. The pressure that he'll be getting put under in the community of Liverpool, the noise that he'll be hearing and feeling in his family all the time. You know, they're born there, they live there. If he wasn't leaving, he would have put them out of their misery. He would have said, look, what's the point in carrying this on? And, you know, just get the contract signed. Unless the money is still sort of, you know, there's a disparity on the money. But I would have imagined he would have tried to driven it towards a completion and get that sort of hassle out of his life if he was going to sign. So I can only think for him to continue to keep the hassle going for so long that you would think he's probably going to leave, unless there is just a complete disconnect in the contract that is being offered to him and the contract that he wants. That's the only thing that I can think of. Yeah, but we'll see.
Well, let's end. I think we've done Liverpool. If I may, just ask you one to go back to Leicester as they go down. If you were hypothetically advising Jamie Vardy as he comes to the end of this season now, around the dilemma of whether to carry on playing football in the Championship with Leicester, carry on playing football somewhere else in the world, or say, do you know what, I have been the ultimate hero in the greatest fairy tale football in England has ever known, call it a day now, what would you say to him?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, look, if his body feels good, it'll come down to how he feels, and these lads are so fit. They look so fit. He's obviously lost a yard, but I think there are opportunities now that exist, you know, in America and other parts of the world where you can go and play and you can enjoy yourself, maybe at a level. I mean, I got to the end of my career, I was never in a million years ever going to put another shirt on, irrespective of my injury. Once I got past 32, I'd made my mind up that I was never going to go and play anywhere else, because I just didn't feel that I'd feel the same passion for football. I live off passion of, you know, it's like now at the end of the season when these games maybe aren't got the same level of fire on them, you just feel a little bit just less, and that's what you don't want to be doing, that playing football. You want to be playing for a club, and you want to feel like you're getting in every single day and you're desperate, and he's been doing that for Leicester now for many years. So it would be great. I think stay at Leicester if he can. You know, why not? You know, do they not need a Jamie Vardy in the Championship? Do you think that he wouldn't cause problems? I mean, they're going to have a lot more of the ball. They're going to dominate a lot more of the games. He knows how to work in the box in short spaces now. He's got better at that during his career. So there may be a position for him for 25, 30, 35 games next season. The Championship's a long old slog. And they can bring in obviously other strikers maybe as well. But he still could be someone important for them in getting maybe 10, maybe 15 goals in the Championship. So maybe that's the solution. He doesn't have to move. But look, it depends on the money, doesn't it? I would imagine he's on a good fair wage. But I look at Jamie Vardy and think to myself, I don't see him going playing for anybody else in the Championship. So that's the one thing I don't see. I don't see him being signed by another Premier League club. So my view would be he either stays at Leicester for next season, or he goes abroad, or he completely goes. I just don't see him sort of staying in this country playing for another club. For some reason, he didn't leave when he could have gone to Arsenal a few years ago. I mean, he's not going to leave to go to Arsenal. He's not going to go and leave now, I don't think, to go and play somewhere else.
Okay, well, unless you have any other business, Gary.
Nottingham Forest, took big game tomorrow night.
Against
really
Monday
big.
Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, look at Nottingham Forest now. They've gone out of the top 5 today. Yeah, I think they did.
Because, well, Chelsea have won.
Chelsea won late on. I think it put Nottingham Forest into 6th. So, and they're away at Tottenham, obviously. I mean, Tottenham haven't been great, but you think that where they were 3rd, weren't they?
Yes.
Earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So you just think about that. You know, I thought it was a great game last night. Villa and Newcastle. So Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, City, Forest, all in there. Arsenal look like they're clear now. They're done. But you know, it just to me looks a real. That's a big game tomorrow night now, Monday Night Football for Forest.
And then, by the way, City Villa Tuesday, which plays into the same dynamic.
I'm doing the game Tuesday, City Villa. That's a big game as well. So, yeah, it's really, that's... the Champions League has always been big, but because of PSR now and the financial sort of position that a lot of these clubs find themselves in, we know that Villa and Newcastle and other clubs are under pressure with this 60, 70 million Champions League pot that comes their way. It's become almost like huge. incredible, really, and sad in some ways. I think that the sort of this desperation to get in there and have to get in there for some of the clubs, but I think a lot of them are sort of dependent upon it. It's unthinkable that City wouldn't be in the Champions League. I think they will get into there, but then you think of Newcastle and how well they've done, Chelsea and the money they've spent to get in there, and yeah. So Nottingham Forest, sorry. You thought that was going to be something that would. They looked like they were clear like a week or two ago. So yeah, that's the big game now, Monday Night Football, and obviously Tuesday I'm at City with you and doing the City Villa game.
Yeah, and then Wednesday Arsenal Palace, which could decide stuff. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. And then, of course, next Sunday, Liverpool Tottenham, when one would anticipate we'll draw a line under it all, but we'll see.
We will.
Funny old game.
Brilliant. Thanks,
Thanks,
Peter.
Gary.
Thank you.